All right, I'm Wade Keller. We're live after Smackdown tonight. Our scheduled co-host, Jason Goodspeed, having some technical issues, so we're getting started a little bit late, which might mean, by the way, that our caller, Sean from Tennessee, might be brought on sooner than he's expecting, because I'd love to have a conversation with him as we look for Jason to get set up so we can kind of stick to our normal format. But we're going to also kind of be testing ourselves on the air here. Technical stuff happens sometimes. Jason Goodspeed, our scheduled co-host, is just setting up a different computer setup than he's used to. So end up being a little bit of a challenge. So we'll see how that goes. But we have a lot going on tonight's SmackDown in the final push to Saturday night's main event. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Sean on. Sean, welcome. You've co-hosted podcasts before. You know how this goes. Over at ProWrestling.net, usually. I don't know where else you're moonlighting.
No, I mean, I guess that's the only one I've actually gotten to be a co-host on, which I was really, like I said, that was a blessing that Jason asked me to do that. I mean, it meant a lot to me because, like I said, I'd heard you guys for so long, and then he's like, I want you to be a part of a show with me. And I'm like, what? No way. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
Well, look at you now. I mean, you're a break glass in case of emergency person. Right. How does that feel?
I'm honored. I'm honored.
All right,
Wade.
good.
I'm honored.
Good. Well, seriously, let's get in conversation about SmackDown, because this was the final pitch for Saturday night's main event. Obviously, it's weird because the big focus is on Kevin Owens against Cody Rhodes, and they're saying, tune in tomorrow night to see us talk more about a match that isn't happening yet. But they, obviously we had I thought a quintessential Cody promo, and I mean that in a good way. I mean, it was just wholesome babyface valuing the title. Tessitore, almost a little too over the top for me, but not. No, he wasn't. He was right on the edge of this precious belt. It was just like, my precious. It's like he's going to be petting this bald cat or something. And when he talks about Cody and how much he cherishes the title, but honestly, I make fun of it a little bit, but I love it. I think some people are going to roll their eyes and go, that's a little too much, Joe Tessitore. But it was in terms of giving value to the title, just to frame it as, Cody, you're going to have to hand the title over to Shawn Michaels tomorrow night and be without it for a week. I mean, I'm trying to think of an analogy where you're not losing anything. You're just sort of giving it up for a week to somebody trusted. It's like dropping your dog off at doggy daycare before you take a trip somewhere for a week. It's just like, that's kind of how he talked about it. But seriously, between that and then the bookend of Kevin Owens being Kevin Owens, and Cody running out for the save, I thought it was just, good paint by number stuff. This was a paint by numbers WWE formula SmackDown, Sean.
Yeah, I agree. And it was one of the better paint by numbers SmackDowns there were. I mean, I saw a little bit online where people were just saying how boring it was. And I mean, 3 hours is, long for a show like this in some ways, but I thought it was fine to build up to main event tomorrow night. And
it was fine. It wasn't great.
No,
it was fine. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Yep.
What's wrong with fine? Why does everything have to? I know you said this, and I agree with you. Not every show has to be a blockbuster show. It doesn't. You move storylines forward. You bring some new people around. You have some good matches, and I think they had a lot of good matches tonight. I thought it was a good show all around, match wise.
Sometimes an episode of Law and Order is an episode of Law and Order, and you're not going to remember it 3 weeks later. But you got what you came for, and obviously the 3-hour format, puts them in a position where people are going to be going, hey, you could have whittled this down to 2 hours and you wouldn't have wasted an hour of my time. You could have tightened up the show. And I get that. But honestly, I mean, there was enough star power there and news. Now, I don't think there was like top shelf news, but Damian Priest being drafted, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller moving over, Nakamura announcing himself for the Rumble, the Parade of Women, kind of putting the women's Royal Rumble now into focus. Yeah. So, and I know I'm leaving stuff out. I mean, it had a bunch of, like, on a 1 to 10 scale, news items ranking between 3 and 5.5. Like nothing. I mean, there are a few things that were sort of a little bit above 5, but not much. But still, I mean, they're going to go back to 2 hours later this year by all accounts, somewhere between March, April, May, June, July. It's whenever USA Network's ready with their show that's going to follow SmackDown. And I don't think anyone that I've seen has credibly pinpointed the moment it's going to happen. I don't even think people in WWE actually know exactly yet. But maybe they do. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I just haven't heard from anyone in WWE who knows the date, and it's not widely circulating, I guess. Talk a little bit about the job that they did, the strength and weaknesses, Sean, from your perspective of KO and Cody and the build.
Yeah, so I thought just the strength was like you said, Cody just talking about how much the title means to him and how much he's ready to defend it against the guy that he's not a big fan of right now for many reasons, and just kind of just talking a little bit about that. Joe Tessitore was fine. I like that he was just like, hey, it's a pleasure to be in here with you. I thought it was cool. I thought it was fine. And then just KO being, I just love the way he said, Cody was my friend and he betrayed me. I just love the way he just makes him feel like he's right, and it was just fun. Another basic promo, but in a good way. I loved it, and just my thought was, I think I told you, I thought, how can you draw this out for a month? Because it was so hot a month ago, and it still is, because their talking time between each other has been really good, and they've brawled a few times, and it's been, it's still, you still are anticipating the match, but I thought, I'm ready for this to get here. I'm ready for it. And tomorrow night, but I'm excited for tomorrow night because the contract signing should be fun. Them in the ring with Shawn Michaels. I think that'll be really intriguing. So I'm ready. I'm interested to see what they do with that. But tonight was just the basic promo stuff between them and the little brawl at the end. I thought it was fine for what they were doing. It was fine.
Yeah, and I think with this match, I mean, they're getting a lot out of this, but it's Saturday night's main event, and like there's a lot of traditions with Saturday night's main event. One of them is we feature matches on national television that we are done making money with. We've made money every other way we can. Like the Saturday night's main event, when Hulk Hogan headlined on Saturday night's main event in the opening, well, it was the opening match, but that's when the biggest audience was, so we usually started the show. It was against an opponent he had already leg dropped and pinned in like 70 cities across America in the previous 4 months. Like they would generally, as a rule, and if they had something for pay-per-view, they're going to save. They wouldn't put it on Saturday's main event. So it's following that formula, a little bit. It's a B show in certain ways, but it's WWE as a red hot product with people who are over, and Cody and KO are going to have a good match. It's a means to another end, probably. Obviously they freshened up KO with Sammy and there's stuff going on there. So, we'll see. Like I said, I mean, this wasn't a gangbuster show, but it's kind of what I expected. I'll say this, the downside to people, and I wasn't looking online, I'm just typing up my report, adding my analysis on PWTorch.com. I have no idea what other people are saying. I glance over at ProWrestling.net because I respect the Jason Paul's opinion and great. Jake Barnett and the people there. Yep. So I'll do that sometimes. But I think what they have to watch out for is with so much content, a 2.5 hour Raw instead of 2, although it's 2.5 instead of 3 if you just missed a few months. It's sort of splitting the difference. But SmackDown going to 3 hours, adding Saturday night's main event to the mix. You're asking for a lot of people's time. And eventually people are going to start to notice, and they might even be looking for it actively and say, this product's starting to feel a little watered down. You're starting to stretch things out a little much. You're like, this was a show hyping a show. This was a show that hyped a match. I'm sorry. Let me phrase this right. This was an episode of SmackDown that hyped a segment tomorrow night on NBC that's going to hype a match that you have to then watch a week later. So, that's the downside of this.
Yeah, and I did love going back to the KO, when he first came out, he's like, you had all that time to interview Cody, but you couldn't interview me. And I was just like, oh, man, that was just so fun. I mean, just Tessitore sold that really well. That was cool. But no, the Braun Strowman Fatu match, they built that up great. I mean, the little tail to tape between them and stuff, like they did a lot to build that up. And I'm intrigued by that match. I think it's going to be a really fun match. And Fatu's a badass. He did. I mean, his promo tonight was fun. I liked it a lot. I mean, he's just full of energy. And I mean, like the women, is what it is. But I mean, the two main matches, they talked about quite a bit. I mean, Sheamus, they're still talking about, is he going to win the Intercontinental title, even though he's wrestled for it 5 times now in the last 6 months? But at least they're making you have a little intrigue in who might win, even though we know who's going to. But I thought they did a good job of making tomorrow night feel as special as they could for what they did. That was fine.
Yeah. All right, let's pause. Let's introduce the show, and then we'll move on with other topics and maybe preview SNME a little bit. And we've got Dan and maybe Ken will call back on hold. And I know Jason, I see him in the background. He's trying to get his setup working.
I know. I wanted to hear Jason. I wanted to hear him, so I hope he can get on. I really hope he can.
He's scrambling. It's. I mean, I've been there where it's like, why can't I hear anything in my headphones? And I'm checking every setting, and then it's like, and when you're supposed to go live and you find out the problem is happening, you don't have time to reboot your computer and look it up online. So, but you're here, Sean. We're good. So yeah, this is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show following the Friday, January 24th, 2025 episode of WWE Smackdown. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter. I've been journalistically covering professional wrestling and breaking stories and causing all kinds of chaos when I report behind the scenes stuff since the late 1980s. Thank you for choosing to listen or watch our show here. We are live on YouTube after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the PWTorch channel on YouTube. You can find the direct link in my TV reports at PWTorch.com. I do a write-up, a detailed write-up with analysis on segments and matches on our main website, PWTorch.com. That also has breaking news, great editorial comments and or columns, and also flashbacks, which we're running more of these days, taking advantage of our deep library going back 5, 10, 20, and even sometimes 30 years for our Raw reports. We just put up some 20 years ago SmackDown reports. I love posting. I post them myself. I love reading over and seeing what was going on, like this week 20 years ago. Right. It makes me realize, and sometimes it puts me in a better mood for these post shows because I realize how bad we had it 10 and 20 years ago compared to now. WWE is just such a better, more polished product with better writers, deeper roster, less filler. So when I hear people complaining about tonight's SmackDown, I'm like, go watch the show from 20 years ago that I just posted my report on. And, this is superior to that, even if we admit it's not superior to some other Raws and SmackDowns recently. But like we said, it was fine. So anyway, you can also download the shows and listen on podcast format. Just search Wade Keller on your podcast app, and you'll see a red and blue logo show up with my face on it, my name on it. Subscribe to both. One's our post-show podcast format. The other is our blue main podcast format. And it's free, and we invite all you to do it. While you're at it, search PWTorch to subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast. Different show each day of the week covering a different topic. We're expecting, by the way, tomorrow night to have a live show one way or the other after Saturday night's main event. I might be hosting. Greg Parks might be hosting. We're working out the logistics. Greg's got some stuff going on. So we're hoping that works out. So be on the lookout in our Saturday night's main event report on PWTorch.com tomorrow night with a link to a live post show. And I would say we're at like 90% that's going to happen and be live. During the show today, while we're talking here for another hour, give or take, you can comment in the chat room if you're watching us live on YouTube. Just join in the chat, join in the conversation. We'll keep an eye on what you're saying, put some of them on the screen, read them to our audio-only podcast audience. And as I say to everybody, if you're not watching live, please like this show. Please comment below. Good or bad, mostly good. We like good comments, but if you got a issue with us and you want to express it, of course, that's what comment areas are for, we've learned. And then you can also subscribe to our channel, and then you can set alerts for when we're on the air. All right, so let's see if Jason can join us here, Sean. We'll just see if his I think he's shaking his head that it's not working. We're just going to prove Jason exists. Yes. Jason, are you there? Can you hear us?
Oh my, this is the reason why I don't fly, because if I can't get a simple laptop to let me come on here with audio, but
you don't trust technology. I gotcha.
Oh yes, absolutely. I should just go live in a cave somewhere.
Jason Goodspeed, PWTorch contributor, does hits and misses columns mostly for NXT, sometimes fills in on Raw and SmackDown. Jason, you are the official co-host. We've never introduced a co-host this late. That is a designation that is yours. I won't say you should be proud. It's not your fault. It's no big deal.
That's awesome. I'm going to go down in the record books. I appreciate that.
So we got a Sean from Tennessee who is filling in. We're not going to boot him. Sean, you can stay with us for a little while too, if you want.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I'd love to.
Yeah. So because it's rude to go, hey, now the real co-host showed up. Bye, Sean. Click. So good to have you here. We got a good live audience and a chat. The chat is engaging. Ken Arnold says, Jason Goodspeed made it. Let's hope tech issues don't get in the way. And Michael Gross said, Jason is alive. So
such as it is.
Yes. Yep. So let's first of all, I want to Jason, get your thoughts on what our A block topic was that you missed out on. We're talking about Cody and KO, and then kind of broadly that this was a fine SmackDown. It was 3 hours. People are going to be a little more short-tempered, I guess, when it comes to a show that isn't great if they're asking for 3 hours of your time. And I would say it would behoove WWE to make sure that these 3-hour shows don't feel like an infomercial for a 2-hour show on NBC tomorrow night. And this had aspects of it. And obviously, WWE TV historically is hyping pay-per-views, but this did, to a pretty good degree, feel like thanks for watching tonight as we get you excited about something else that's happening bigger tomorrow and next weekend. But that said, I still thought the Cody promo was good, and the KO angle and just KO in general was good. And so I thought it was, productive in that way. What do you think?
Yeah, I love the work that KO is doing. This is a guy that surprisingly has had, well, I like to call it the Paul White Big Show face heel turns. He's had a basket full of them, but they never seem to be bad. He always seems to reinvent himself in a certain manner. I think this is probably the best heel KO I've seen in a very long time. I think that his interactions with Joe Tessitore, with the audience, he's one of those, I think, the perfect heel. He's one of the heels that makes sense.
Yes.
And you kind of want to hate him that much more because everything he's saying is true. And I'll tell you, if I was the WWE, I would put the strap on him. I really would. I would give him the championship. I just think that the guy's doing. Cody's not going to lose anything. Cody's going to be the poster boy of the company. But I really would. I would like to see that because I think that could set up for some interesting, maybe WrestleMania main events.
Well, Sean McHale is in the chat going, I'd love to see him go over at the Rumble, meaning KO winning, I assume that's what he's talking about. Sean says KO has been money for months now.
Yeah.
I mean, KO's great. I would not do that, Jason, but I'm not like, what? You want to do that? Like, I get from a viewership standpoint and the fact that Kevin Owens is in certain ways as good as anybody in this business. Like, in many ways, better than anybody in this business. I mean, MJF was, sorry, Matt MJF, but I mean, he was the exciting new thing for a while, and he's faltered. There's been some things that are out of his control. He had a lot of bad luck with injuries and creative stuff that, I think some of the stuff was his fault and growing pains and him finding himself. But, he was supposed to be sort of the new KO in some ways. And now, Kevin Owens is just on his game. And I think he is doing, I mean, I wouldn't say his best work by far because I've just admired his mic work for so long. And I think in the ring, he's wrestling smart, but there's, at his age, there's going to be a little bit less of some of the stuff that made him stand out before. I just don't think you can I don't think he's the person that you have end Cody's reign going into WrestleMania season because I just think Cody's too big of a star right now. Sean, you're nodding along. Comment on that.
Yeah, so again, I love KO. I love what he's been doing in this last heel run. I think it's been fantastic. I just he's been not defined to a certain level, but I just don't think, even though he's brought himself back up in this last year or so, I just think Cody's on such a great run right now. I know people think, he hasn't had a lot of good challengers, and he hasn't. But he's already beaten KO before. I just don't think all of a sudden KO beating him now is going to. Somebody said, in the chat that Cody's not drawing. I think he's drawing really well. I think the fans love him, and I just don't think him losing to KO at the Rumble. I think Cody has bigger things headed for Mania, and I think somebody even bigger than KO can take the title off of him here down the road, and I think it'll be even better than what KO is doing right now. Even though, I love what KO's done, but I just don't think he's the one to beat Cody. I would go a different route.
So Dan says who then? Sean.
I
mean, Jason wants it to be Kevin Owens. If it's not Kevin, I mean, my answer, since you're not just jumping in with an answer, because you might have had one, is I'm in no hurry.
I'm not.
I think I'm fine if Cody holds it for another year. I'd like to see him get more. I'd like to see him get more top of the line opponents, and I am a little worried that he is going to get second line opponents a lot of the time, as spread thin as they are. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I say spread thin, I don't know even know if that's the right way to put it. As much as they're trying to stretch things out and time things out, they're not just throwing top people at him. But I'd have to look at the lay of the land. We still have this transfer window thing going on, and I just don't know where people are going to end up. But Jason, I'll throw to you. When you make a case for Kevin Owens, are there matches that intrigue you for Kevin Owens to defend the title if he were to become champ? Oh, we can't hear.
Oh, you muted yourself.
Oh, there. No, I muted him by mistake. That was my fault, Jason. Go ahead and start your answer over.
Please, I can mute myself. I don't need your help. So,
yes.
No, I mean, from a fanboy's point of things, I would absolutely love to see. It's never going to happen in my lifetime, but I would love to see a night one WrestleMania, Kevin Owens as champion taking on Sami Zayn, who wins the Royal Rumble, to give them guys the WrestleMania main event. Maybe not the night two. But I mean, that's if I was doing completely off the wall fantasy booking. My biggest fear right now going into the Royal Rumble and heading into WrestleMania season is this John Cena retirement tour.
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrified that's going to be the consolation prize. Maybe not at WrestleMania. Maybe they may hold off and give him his 17th title at Survivor Series. But if you're gonna take an old dog and take the strap off Cody, I would rather have it be Randy Orton than John Cena. And I think Randy Orton's been a little reinvigorated since he's come back from injury. But this John Cena retirement tour just really it kind of frightens me a little bit. Nothing against John Cena and his charity work and everything he does outside of the ring, but he's one of those guys. I'm like, okay, I've had enough of you. We've got let's usher in the younger generation. We've got to, we got to get some fresh talent in here in the main event scene.
Yeah. So Goodfella 1422 says, yes, we need Cody versus Randy Orton and against Punk. The clock is ticking. Figure it out. And JC Scooby 1976 says KO against Punk for the title at Mania. So KO against Punk at Mania would be.
That would be cool. That'd be cool.
I mean, and that's the thing. Maybe they got some twists. Maybe Cody's going to end up with a setback, and they're going to tell this whole, new dramatic story with Cody and him coping with not. They made a big deal to WWE doesn't do anything by accident, but sometimes you can read too much into some things with that in your mind. But the way Tessitore said, you're going to go a week without your belt. It's precious belt. Are you going to be okay? They might be foreshadowing that Cody's going to lose the title and he's going to have a breakdown, and who knows what's going to happen.
Cody, I will say, Cody on the chase is fantastic. He is great when he's underneath and coming from behind, and then they tell the story of him. Now, it's got to be a little nuanced compared to what he just did a year ago. It's got to tell a little bit different way, but they could still do it. It could be interesting.
Yeah. Another comment in the chat, Michael Gross said KO versus Punk, the promos alone. So Kevin Owens against Sami, night one of WrestleMania. I mean, you could have the women's title match headline and then have that not be the main event. Then KO has something else to complain about for the next 2 years. If that happens. So obviously, I mean, KO Sami, there's people who love that feud, would love to see that. Kevin Owens and Punk would be phenomenal. I mean, when we look at Stephanie Chase and I, a couple weeks ago on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast Flagship, the Blue Logo Show. Search Wade Keller if you missed it. We talked about all the top stars in WWE, and when I say all, we didn't spend a lot of time on Kevin Owens. But we talked about the people we thought were candidates to be top tier star or main eventers and different possible opponents for them. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that that's something I think is likely at all, or something I would vote for sitting here right now. But if they had some injuries or called some audibles or just surprised us and we got KO Sami, with that history of that feud and how long they've been away from it, and they made that a world title match at Mania, because and again, that would only be because they're very excited about something with Cody losing and having to climb back in a different way with a fresh story. I mean, we could see that. And I mean, there's so many options when we look at the lineup. I mean, somebody just mentioned the chat, Drew McIntyre, and it's Drew could be main eventing WrestleMania. They have so many top tier guys. But again, I don't think that's where they're I don't think that's where they're heading. Anything else you want to say on KO and Cody going in tomorrow night? They promoted Shawn Michaels and made it clear they trust him to hold these belts and not run off to AEW with them. I don't know what they're worried about. What's going to happen? What if they give them to Charles Robinson? Is he going to get beat up and someone's going to steal him? I mean, Aldis will just threaten to fire him unless they give him away, and then they can just buy a new one off the merch stand or have a new one made. I mean, I'm making fun of it, but I like that they make it seem like it's this thing that you have to cherish and hold, and you don't want to give up even for a week. And KO wants that belt so much, also just to taunt Cody, but also value it. So, WWE has a lot of title belts right now, but they're making it seem important. But Rude Dog is a reality check for us, and he goes, "KO's not winning the title. Get real."
Well, I agree.
I think, yeah. I mean, Jason could say he wants to see it. Jason, would you put if are you gonna pull 50% of your life savings, whether it's $10 or $10 million? You're gonna put 50% of it on the line for to bet that KO beats Cody?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fun. It's fun to play out a little bit. For Rude Dog's sake, I just want to say we are playing out a scenario for podcast entertainment, and mostly just to kind of play it out and go, like, talk it out a little bit. Go, is this actually something that would work, even if we almost know that WWE's not doing it, and we pretty much know they're not. So Jason, anything else on KO and Cody you want to say about what they did tonight?
No, they've had some pretty decent pull apart brawls. I think they've kept them fresh enough where sometimes they can be overdone. Between two feuding men or women, and but they at least they try to do a little bit different every single time. But I will be happy to see the end of the feud one way or another, and see both of these guys move on. I just worry about what happens to KO. I mean, delusional KO is hysterical. I love everything he does, but this has also, I think, run its course, and I think Royal Rumble should be I don't see this being a Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns saga where you could continue it for a year and get a lot of mileage out of it. I think this is one of these that Royal Rumble should be the end of however it ends. It should end.
And you could still do KO and Sammy at Mania without a title involved. I mean, you could still build a great story with them.
Yeah, and that'd be great. I mean, giving them a actual WrestleMania match, and I kind of think that's what's going to happen. If we're putting our money on the line, I think that's the likely scenario.
Like to said in the chat, if Nick Aldis is going to wrestle again, which I would love to see him wrestle. I mean, he's great in the role that he has right now. I think he's done a really nice job. But I do want to see him wrestle. I've heard so much about what he can do, just the way he talks and the way he, has such a good technical wrestler. Like, I would love to see him in KO. I mean, that would be really cool. I don't think they're going that route, but that would be a lot. That'd be a blast too.
Maybe SummerSlam. Yeah. All right, cool. So, Sean, I know you want to talk about the setup for the women's Royal Rumble and everybody kind of entering their name and the interaction there that led to the impromptu 6-woman tag. Tell me about what you thought of that segment.
I didn't care for it. I just don't like when they have the women all come out one by one. I just think it's so overdone, so phony, so forced. I just don't like it at all. I mean, Tiffany came out. I want to hear more from Tiffany. Like, I want to hear about this character Tiffany, like where she's at right now. Is she still a full-blown heel? And they're still kind of teasing, they're still like, I don't know. We don't know where she is right now. And then she just gets interrupted right away, which is cool seeing Rhea coming out there. But then Rhea, says her stuff, which was fine. And then, they all just came out. And Bianca, again, I love Bianca. I will defend her in a lot of ways. But this is not good Bianca Belair right now. This is not good Bianca Belair. I want more out of her. I want more out of her character, like you said. Yeah, go ahead.
Every time I'm critical of Bianca, I get some pushback. And I think it's people who I don't want to frame it that way. What I want to say is I think Bianca Belair should be a top 4 star in all of professional wrestling right now.
Yep.
And she's not. And so I ask myself, why hasn't she reached the level that I thought she had? The in-ring ability, promo ability, look, bond with the fans, natural charisma. What's wrong? And so I address it and I give my opinion on it. But it isn't because I'm trying to say that it's not ripping on her. It's saying I think there's more there than they're getting out of the way that her character is presented. And I'm not blaming her, but I'm not blaming her. She doesn't have the agency to say, I want to stop doing this, and this. She's making good money. She doesn't quite have that clout. It's a very few wrestlers who can just go, Yeah, but I think she should at this point have some. If she didn't like this, just kind. I mean, she comes across too young in a way, like the way she carries herself. I don't know what your problem is with her, Sean. But I just want her to be a woman in her 30s who's an alpha, who carries herself as an alpha, who's a serious person. And I think so much is just sort of in this narrow scope of a lot of the carryover from her as a heel in NXT. And then some of it is, I'm appealing to the 9 to 13-year-old girl demographic in the crowd. And there's a place for that. Let someone else do it who can't be as a transformative generational top star like I think Bianca Belair can be if she just talked in a way on TV that made me believe it's somehow connected to who she really is as a person. And I don't buy that. I've seen her do mainstream interviews. The character we see on TV isn't. So I talk about this a lot. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it myself because I made myself clear. I wanted to clarify that point. Some people commented on it after last week's show. I think she can be more than she is, and that is where my critique comes from. I just think she's being underestimated by Paul Levesque and the writing team, and maybe we're on a journey to get somewhere better, and I just need to be patient. But I'm not going to just not say when I watch her act like an upper mid-carder in her character and her portrayal. I'm not gonna say, I think it's great. I think she should be utilized better. So Sean, give your thoughts because I know you want to talk about it, and then we'll throw to Jason for his take.
So Sadler in the chat says she's over. I don't feel like she's very over right now.
Sean,
I don't.
Oh no, go ahead, Sean.
I'm sorry.
No,
sorry.
I
apologize
always,
for that.
I don't like referring to the chat unless I quote it completely because most of our listeners are audio only, and I don't ever want them to feel left out. I'm not trying to be a control freak. It's just in my head as a guy running the show. I'm like, I know people are going to be lost, and I don't want them to be lost because I'm pick on wrestling shows for that stuff. So let me introduce chat stuff, and I'll read it out loud, and then it'll be on topic. Okay, sorry, everyone thinks I'm a control freak now, but I just want to.
Well, I'll go with what I was thinking as far as where my thought is. So I'm kind of where you are as far as I want more layers to who she is, what she wants, what she's passionate about. But I want to do it, in a real way that, like tonight when she came out with Naomi, like Naomi's not helping either now that they're together because they're just wanting to be jokey and laughy and smiley and that whole baby face that sometimes WWE portrays as just, I got to be smiley, I got to be happy, and I got to feel like I'm up, and she just feels like she's not above it all, but just not. Like I want her to be more personable, and she has been when she first came up and she was doing the match against Sasha and she did all that stuff. It was great, and then she just was like, I guess I'm good. I'm over it at this point. I don't maybe need to go to another level or something, but there's just something missing for me where, and that's the thing I wanted to ask you too, you guys, about where this whole thing is going with Jay. Cause I feel like, how long is it going to take before they start building to this story with Jay? Like who is behind it? Cause I feel like they've just, are they waiting until after Mania to start talking about it or really dig into it deeper, like build a story with that? Because I feel like they've just kind of they didn't abandon it because they've talked about it, but
they haven't abandoned it. But my take on it is sometimes it's calendar booking or where there's just a point they're going to run a big angle and they're doing their best to fill time in the meantime. I don't want to. You don't hear me saying a lot, okay, let's get going with it, because I know that they have worked backwards from a big moment. And sometimes that's a longer path than we want, but it's not like they're not going. So this is not an incompetent booking team. They obviously have a place they're going with this. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time second guessing it when the obvious answer is they're not ready to pull the trigger on it yet. And it's not ideal that it's taking this long. They're keeping it alive, but they'll get to it. Now, if this was a different booking regime, I'd be like, have they forgotten about it? What's going on here? But it's WrestleMania season. So in terms of, being critical of something, I don't get on the case of the exception is when a baby face or when there's a heel pair and fans want, like with Tiffany or the Mizdow example, where the fans just want Otis, they want the baby face to turn against the mentor heel who's bullying them or being mean. That you can wait so long on, because I think if you wait too long for the payoff, it doesn't work. With this Jade thing, I don't think there's any downside to it. I don't think it'll be less effective when the payoff happens. I think they have a story that they're trying to tell. It's a little ways before they get there. Could be wrong, Sean, on this, but that's my default position on this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I want Bianca to be the one that attacked Jade and turn heel. That's what I want now. My worry is, like you said, her and Montez had the show. She really loves being a face. She loves giving back. She wants to do all that stuff that Cody does. And she's like, I don't want, but she needs to do it. This is the time to do it. I think she could be a beast dominant heel that's full of herself in a good way, in a good, just a fun way to where it would just be different, and it would change the perception of her in a good way for me personally. I think it'd be better for her.
So let's go to Jason on this. You've heard Sean talk about it. I've talked about it. You might kept your eye in the chat room. What do you think of Bianca?
Well, I'm with Sean about I would love to have it be Bianca be the one that took out Jade Cargill, whether from a jealousy standpoint, because Bianca was always the muscular one, the strong one, and then Jade comes in and she almost outdoes her in some of these attributes, and I would love that. But I'll tell you, anybody who has ever followed Bianca Belair in NXT when she first debuted, when she was what is the EST, when she would come out and brag and boast and was just arrogant and overconfident. I love heel Bianca Belair. And I think that's exactly what they need to do. They need to bring back a heel Belair. I think that right now they're outside of Nia Jax, who I think is doing great work as a heel. There really isn't a strong category. And even a person you want to be a heel in Tiffany Stratton is being cheered like crazy. I mean, people love her because she has so much personality. You almost can't boo her. But I think if you put Belair back into that pocket where she was the EST and bragged about how much better she was than everybody else, I think that would strap a rocket to her. And I think that gives her, she has a better heel personality, in my opinion, than the smiling baby face. So that would be what I would do. I would love to see that.
And it's sort of like New Day and Cody. Oh, we don't want to turn them heel, or they don't want to turn heel because they have such a following with young fans. And I'm like, you know what? Young fans are going to like professional wrestling, and they're going to find somebody they like. They might not like him as much or buy as much merch for somebody else, but I don't think disappointing kids who are disappointed every time their favorite wrestler loses when they constantly watch wrestling. You can't watch sports in general without being constantly disappointed. Maybe that's just a Minnesota thing, but no, it's not. It's not.
I'm a Vikings fan. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help but laugh at that.
Yeah. I mean, at least it cleared up the J.J. McCarthy controversy. We have clarity on that, I think, after the last 2.5 games from Darnell. So just my thing is just do what's best for the stories on TV. The master you should serve is how do we maximize the drawing power and the effectiveness of wrestlers on television. That's where the money is. That's where the biggest audience is. And it's the biggest audience through TV, but it's also the snippets from the TV shows then go viral or whatever. People see them on social media. That's what drives the storylines forward. So just position Bianca the best way you can, and then figure out somebody else to be the role model for the kids who are currently cheering her and are going to cry when she turns. Yeah, I mean, Bianca would be a very good heel, but I feel bad that I want to see a grown-up 30-something alpha Bianca also. Like, I want her to not. Again, I feel strongly about it. I think there is big money with her not going into pro wrestler character mode. I don't buy her in the role that she's in. It feels very early 90s, 80s WWF. Just, I twirl my thing and I dance to my music, and it's just, I mean, anyway. All right. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just bring up the thing about, everybody coming out, and then with the Women's Rumble, and they did the same thing last year. There just wasn't as much build to the Women's Rumble.
Yep.
They haven't told a lot of stories intricately kind of going around the Rumble, like who could win, other than they all just come out, oh, I'm in the Rumble, I'm going to win. And it's like, guys, like the women there's so many talented women on this roster. Tell more stories intricately, to make the Rumble feel more important for them, other than they're all going to be in it. Who's going to win?
So I know there's people in the chat who are like, just do away with the interruption promos. The one person parades out after the other. I'm less down on it. Todd Martin hates it every time it happens. He's like, it sucks. I see it as a less than ideal, obviously, way to just promote a tag match, or just the whole parade of people coming out. It's a trope, but it just doesn't bother me as much as some other things do. I mean, because I see it as somewhat realistic. Like the way WWE's whole structure is set up, a couple of people are out there arguing. Someone else goes, I want to say something about this. They run through Gorilla. Someone hits their music. They go to the ring, and then 3 people are getting attention. There's a 4th person backstage and a 5th who go, we want to, well, what, we have something to say about this. So they run to the ring and it's chaotic. It doesn't feel like fake to me. It seems like something that could happen. People are hanging out backstage. They're watching the monitors, and one after another goes, hey, no one's talking about the Rumble without me in the ring. So again, the issue is how often they do it, and is it a shortcut to what, Sean, you're talking about, which is let's give more time, more granular development of the, it feels like a shortcut for the women because they can't be bothered. And that's a problem. Sometimes it flat out is that. And I think that gives it a bad name. Jason, what pros and cons of the women's segment tonight with, women coming out declaring themselves for the Rumble and sort of having it every woman for herself, although it resulted in a 3-on-3 match, but, with everyone kind of arguing over who's going to win the Rumble.
Yeah, I agree with both of you as far as like this happens far too often. It is a crutch that I think wrestling in general should do away with. How many times have we seen it after a major title match? The next big show comes up and 6 people will come out, interrupt each other because they want to be the number 1 contender to this title or that title. And I don't like the whole I'm announcing I'm going to enter the Royal Rumble. It just makes it seem like, okay, well, I want to be in it. Well, I should be able to go into a WWE ring and say, hey, you know what? I want to be in the Royal Rumble. I declare I'm going to be in the Rumble.
Yeah.
I don't know. And plus, I think it takes away. I mean, we all know these people are going to be in the Rumble.
Yeah.
But part of the Rumble that makes it fun is the surprise of who's coming out and who's going to be in it. I would rather not hear from 30 women and find out the 30 women that are going to be in there every minute, half, 2 minutes, or whatever it is. That's far more exciting for me than to know, like, if I get down to number 29 and I haven't seen Bianca Belair or Nia Jax, well, I know it's going to be one of those 2. And I know the other one's going to be number 30. There's no surprise. It takes everything away from it. I was not a big fan of that segment, and it led into what I always call the Teddy Long rule. You come out and you have a fight, and then, we've got a tag team match coming up after the break. I think that I like that you're trying to give the women the time, but give them some substance, as I think both you, Sean, and you, Wade, said. Make us want to care that they might clash at the Royal Rumble. That one person might be the one to throw the other one out, and have it be storyline driven, not just I declared, so I'm going to throw you out. I mean, there was just nothing to it.
Yeah, and I like order, structure, logic to how these things happen. I'd like more definition to what this transfer window is. But I'd also like there to be wrestlers going, I'm declaring myself for the Royal Rumble, but framing it, or having the announcers frame it as, yes, like just throw it in every year. Announcer goes, a lot of wrestlers make their case for wanting to be in the Rumble, and the GMs let them know once they enter their name as someone who wants to be in it, they have to put a stamp of approval on it. There's only so many spots, and there's only so many people who've earned it. So I just wish they did that a little bit. It would be easy to do. There's things that are hard to avoid doing and still just promoting this mega successful WWE formula. And so I sort of let it go because there isn't an easy solution. So I just sort of live with it and bake it in as just sort of, it's just part of it. But when there's an easy solution, that's when I speak up about it. So it's like, it might seem like a small thing, but I think if you clean up 15 small things, you get a better show. But you can't clean up everything. Some things just people in the chat are saying, I want more. JC Scooby said, chorus of wrestlers coming out as lazy booking. And it is, but do you really want a 3-hour SmackDown to be filled with all the wrestlers in the ring, each getting a talking segment on this show individually, declaring? Like, it is sort of an efficient way to go, what is the interest level in all these women? And is there a better way to accomplish this? Or are we going to push out a lot of other things that people would rather see on the show? And so that's part of why I live with it more, as long as they don't do it very often. But I think it's a natural thing to happen in the way that, the structure of wrestling is set up. you can imagine it happening. Ken Arnold says, I was never bothered by the chorus line of wrestlers interrupting each other with a promo. I get that it's an easy way to get everyone on the show, but sometimes it's fine. And that's kind of where I am. It's not one of my outrages, because I think, what's the other alternative? The whole show is filled with individual segments with these women declaring, and what's the pretext for that? This feels more natural than that. We are entering a stage where there's enough time given to women in general, with the 2 additional titles, a deeper roster, and their placement on big shows. I mean, we take it for granted now, but the women's division is much more fleshed out than it used to be. So I think we're getting to a point where we'll hold a higher standard to it, but we're not quite there yet, where I would imagine everybody who was part of the segment declaring tonight that it would have made sense to have them each get individual segments.
I would say Naomi and Bianca hurt it for me the most. I think it was okay until they came out and just seemed so the way they were acting was just too over the top and too whatever the word you want to use is. It just took me really out of it. I was like, man, this doesn't feel serious. And it's just, they're all declaring. And again, the men's rumble, there's so many intricate stories built with so many different people. And the women, they're just not doing that. It's just more basic stuff. And I just want more, because there's too much talent on this women's roster.
Yep, that's fair. JC, you want to add to that? Oh, let me read 2 quotes before I throw it. JC Scooby says, don't have declaring enter the Rumble. And then Michael Gross says, the term should be, I qualified for the Royal Rumble. I'm announcing that I qualified. Instead of declaring yourself, Jason, I'd love the Vikings to step up and go, we're declaring ourselves for the Super Bowl.
I'd be happy if they just declared they were Super Bowl champions. We wouldn't even have to go through the game itself.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but that's not how it works. So,
yeah, I would like, I was, when you guys were talking, I was thinking, I was going back to, I remember the old, I don't even know what they call the rolling cage that they would have, where they'd pick out the numbers and they would say, okay, they open it up. Oh yeah, I'm going to be number 27. All these people who declare that they are going to enter the Royal Rumble should be put in one of those cages. And so if 60 women on the roster say, hey, I declare I want to join the Royal Rumble. Okay, put your name in the cage. We roll it out. And you know what? Then I'd rather have a segment like that. We have Nick Aldis come out there and say, you know what? I'm going to draw, here are 10 names that are going to be in the Royal Rumble. Bam, 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 bam. Yeah, the tumbler, exactly.
So that's right. I mean, again, just I would like some structure, some explanation for how this works. And they get lazy about it. We saw it with the draft for so long. The draft lottery, Vince McMahon and his writers had no idea how drafts worked, and they just made some weird derivative nonsense execution of it. So yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. There's some good solutions. There are so many things about this show that are cleaned up from where things were done 10, 15, 20 years ago that makes the show better, and I think people take it for granted. But there's still room to clean up. I talk about it all the time, so I apologize in advance, but I don't like a camera following a wrestler for absolutely no reason for 6 seconds, and then someone crosses paths with them in an unexpected way. There's a better way to film it. Have Cody on a mission and have the camera follow Cody clearly on a mission to intercept Priest and show Priest in the picture before Cody gets to him. Because then it's believable. The camera guy roaming around backstage goes, something's about to happen. Let's film it. As opposed to, for absolutely no reason, we're going to film someone. At least I hounded on it so much and for so long. No one's on their phone anymore being filmed. They finally got rid of it. That was the dumbest thing ever that they did for years. Just filming someone on their phone, and then someone would walk in on them. How did you know someone's going to walk in on them? And then what if they didn't? They should, as a gag, have just done for 4 weeks in a row, showing people on their phone and nothing happened. Because that's the only thing that would make the whole thing make sense, because it was too big of a coincidence that every time they showed somebody live on looking at their phone for no reason, someone walked in and made the segment interesting. So they are cleaning stuff up, but there's more to clean up. And sometimes people push back and go, it's nitpicking. Come on. All this stuff makes for a better show. I'm a journalist. I went to college, took journalism classes. I didn't think the professor was nitpicking when he tried to make my writing better. Being a good, clear writer, you're serving the reader. Part of that is nitpicking everything so that you serve the reader the most clear, concise, efficient communication of ideas and news that you can. That's what being a good writer is, journalistically. And that's what a wrestling show should be. It should have an editor who's a nitpick. They're picking on everything because you end up with a better product in the end. And that's the mindset I bring to it. A lot of people don't like hearing it, and they don't listen to me or they complain. But I genuinely think there's wrestling is an art form, and it can be produced in a lot of different ways. And, we see people in the chat, there's things they don't like, and it could be cleaned up, and enough people speak up and don't like it, WWE should listen, and then I think they'll be more successful. And this, the Rumble thing's an example, and people are also upset. I shouldn't say upset, but the transfer window. People want the transfer window to be explained. Brock Benningfield says transfer window is wide open tonight, and JC Scooby 1976 says transfer window better close after the Rumble. Some other people were commenting on that. Yeah, I mean, they're sloppy about it, and I think there should be a more definition of how it works and what it means. But sometimes there's diminishing returns, but I don't think in that case this is one of those examples. Jason, anything you want to jump in? Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, even though I'm with you on the transfer window, I wish they would explain it a little more, like what this is, like what we're doing. But I was just glad to see Damian Priest on SmackDown. It's a fresh thing for him. He's got some fresh opponents to work with, and I was just excited he was on there. I cared why he was there, but at the same time, he talked with all this. It made sense from that. Welcome to SmackDown. I wanted you on SmackDown, and you're here, and that part was fine. But I wish they would explain it more.
JC, you want to add to this?
Yeah, it would. I think it's great for Priest because I think he needs to be fresh and done. He's run through everything in Raw that he could possibly do. I think he's run through his feud with Finn Balor is over and done. But I would love it if even just a little nitpick, like you were saying, Wade, about nitpicking. I would love it if Nick Aldis had said to Damian Priest tonight, "You have no idea what I had to give up to get you to come to SmackDown." Because at least you're like, oh, geez, I wonder who's going to be. There must be a couple of people he sent to Raw. I'll have to watch Raw to find out who's going to be showing up. What kind of deal did he make? This whole, I like the transfer window idea. I just don't like the fact it hasn't been fleshed out. It's just like, we have a transfer window. Okay, that's it.
It's a sports term, so it makes us feel better if we use it. The transfer window is my understanding is the players in college basketball and soccer have agency. They decide in the transfer window where they're going to go. That's not the definition of this. It seems like the GMs are deciding where wrestlers go. Miz wasn't part of the decision. So this is sort of like the draft lottery where Vince didn't know there was a draft lottery for the NBA that preceded the draft that determined the order. He just went boop, 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 and had the game show stuff. It was just nonsense because he didn't know actually what a draft or a draft lottery were. He didn't care. He didn't think about it. That's what this transfer window is. It's shame on Paul Levesque and them for Lee Fitting should know better. Pause for shame. And, every time we say his name, but, he should know better. I think wrestling fans should be given something that is better defined and explained. And frankly, for the sake of the way the wrestlers come across, it should be that they have agency in this decision. But you could just say wrestlers want to move. They make their case, but the GM needs to offer something in return. Has to be enticed by another wrestler who wants. A wrestler wants to leave has to be offset by a wrestler who wants to come, and both GMs have to agree to it. I mean, it's easy to explain. That's a whole thing. It's not hard to fix this. They just can't be bothered, and it's a disrespect to the viewer, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah. Ken Arnold says Joe Tessitore knows how a transfer portal works. He covers college football. He's probably sitting here going, thinking in his head, I'm too new. I'm too new to say anything, but man, this is stupid. And Michael Gross says the Miz has bragged that he's been drafted to opposite shows every time there's a draft. So why is he surprised? And then Jason D from Australia says they're getting paid $1 billion. Nitpicking comes with the territory. I think most of my criticism is the spirit is if we do all of it, it'll add up to a better product. If we just do one of them, it's a nitpick because it won't make a difference. But I think in totality, all these things add up. It's the straighten your tie moments. It's just like, doesn't ruin a wedding, but it's better if the ties are straight for the photos. It's just like, do it. It's easy. Okay, let's bring Root Dogg into the conversation and see what he wants to add to this. I don't know what happens when we add a fourth person. I do, but I'm building up all the excitement here.
Whoa.
Hey, Root Dogg, it's like the Brady Bunch.
Wow. Yeah. Cool to be part of the fourth wheel, as we should say. And I'm wearing my KO shirt.
Yes.
Sean, you're gonna be. I don't like this. This is too smart. I'm gonna take you off for a moment. We'll bring you back in.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want. That's too many small. We can't see what Root Dogg's doing. But stand by, Sean. Go ahead, Root Dogg. What's on your mind?
Well, I was saying like I threw some shade that no way KO is going to win the title, but I am a KO supporter, so I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I'll be kind of quick because I live in mid-Michigan now and my internet connection sucks, so I don't want to just flame out. So what'd you think about DIY and Motor City Machine Guns getting added to the Royal Rumble? That's 2 out of 3 falls.
Yeah, there's definitely more news to cover on the SmackDown, and that's one of them. I mean, when I think back like a year ago, if we would have said, so DIY were being used so poorly, they're sitting on the ring apron, patting themselves on the back, living in the past, not getting any fresh creative, as they say. And Motor City Machine Guns, like the idea was, well, the window pass for them to be a national star on WWE TV, and we're gonna see this like probably classic match. It's gonna, I mean, not everything has to be compared to AEW, but like AEW is supposed to be the tag team company, and it is. They just got done with Private Party losing, and now you got people like Hurt Business, but it is 2 50-ish-year-old guys, one of whom had a massively losing record in WWE for years, who is now, and they're not known as tag team specialists. Shelton is years past that. WWE has a chance, and I think it's deliberate. I think they want to be like, oh, AEW, you thought you were going to be this? No, you're not. We've actually hired the two great indie tag teams, perhaps comparable to the Young Bucks. Well, not perhaps. They're comparable to the Young Bucks in terms of body of work, and some would argue both have a better track record. Overall, big picture than the Bucks in certain ways, or a lot of ways. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. I love tag team wrestling. I grew up. The AWA was a tag team territory. World Class was a tag team territory. The NWA, the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Road Warriors. I mean, I love. And then the glory years from the WWF with the British Bulldogs, Dream Team, Rougeau Brothers, Hart Foundation. I saw so many house shows from the WWF in those mid to late 80s years, and it was just those are my favorite. I mean, you know what you're getting with Hogan. I mean, it was being front row for Hogan defending his title in that era was fun, but the good wrestling was tag wrestling. So, and I think, Triple H and I are not too far apart in age. I'm younger than him, but I think we grew up with a similar appreciation for a lot of the things in the territories and saw a lot of different styles. And I think it's baked into him that this is something he wants to be part of a product that he's known for. Jason, your thoughts on that match that Rude Dog brings up?
Wicked excited about it, and I really like the fact that it's going to be 2 out of 3 falls, because I think that kind of gives you the impression they're going to give these guys the time necessary to pull off what I think is going to be an incredible match. DIY right now is heels. I think are doing some of their best work, and this is Motor City Machine Guns. This is pretty much my introduction to them. I never really got to see them much when they were in TNA. But I love their work, what I've seen so far. I think that I would be hard pressed to believe if that doesn't steal the show at the Royal Rumble, it's going to come pretty close.
I don't know they're going to have time to give it. I mean, like, I'm worried that the first fall or the second fall is going to be just, especially the first fall is going to be unnaturally short. That's one of my gripes with best 2 out of 3 fall matches is there's almost no reason a first fall should go shorter than if it was a 1 fall match. Why is somebody getting pinned more easily because there's 2 more falls? You can make the case someone submits sooner because they know they have 2 more falls to go to get it back, and you don't want your arm broken. But they don't tell that story often enough. Sometimes they're just a quick finish, and it's just fake. It just takes me out of it. So I hope they don't do that. I hope that the first fall is the longest, and it feels like a full-fledged tag match, and the next 2 are the ones that add drama, but they're shorter, and that's just more logical. So that's my only caveat to liking this is I still don't have trust with Paul Levesque that he's going to break that trope of the early pinfall for no good reason in a best of 3 falls match, because he's still filming people backstage for no reason. So I mean, there's certain things he still hasn't. There's still some irritants left that are not absent, despite him clearing up a lot of Vince McMahon irritants. Rude Dog, back to you.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping, if they would have just said, hey, it's, this match is going to be on the card, I'd be like, okay, but the 2 out of 3 falls at least gives me hope they'll have some time to tell a story. And then I'm wondering how many matches are even going to be on this card. It might be a pretty light match card with, the 2 Royal Rumbles plus the main event and this. I mean, it could be just a 4-match show.
I know, and with Saturn's main event, it does. You would be like, oh, Fatu and Braun should be on that, or but I think that because of Saturday's main event, they can afford to not just turn the Royal Rumble into this bloated show with 2 long Royal Rumbles, but a bunch of mid-card matches. I don't have a ton of hope that they're going to have a really long classic DIY Motor City Machine Guns match. I think we'll probably get a two quick first fall, a 2 quick second fall, a 2 quick third fall, and they'll get 13 minutes or 16 minutes. And it'll still be good, but in a way, why do the best of 3 falls format if you're not going to commit to at least 20 plus minutes? And I think because what you bring up, maybe they're not, because they've got 2 long matches baked in.
Yeah, well, I hope for the best.
Yeah. So yeah, anything else?
Not on that subject, but you mentioned Jacob Fatu for a minute, and I thought he had a great showing tonight. And the kind of the walk up thing is a little played out, honestly, to me, of them. But I thought the one he did today, was really cool. It felt real. Like he was really hyping himself up and stuff. So what do you think the ceiling is on this guy? I mean, because he's kind of overshadowing all of the new bloodline for sure. But I mean, is
there still a new bloodline?
Why?
Jason?
Well, that's a good question.
Did they mention Solo Sikoa tonight or the new bloodline? It just seemed like, it's Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu. And Jacob Fatu's doing the talking. It just doesn't seem like they're hung up on that. I'm sure. I should say I'm sure. I strongly suspect the new bloodline will still be a thing, and Solo will come back and be part of that group. But to me, him walking out last week, was it just last week he walked out and then that's a big story, and they didn't draw attention to it because Solo's not on the horizon on tomorrow night, so they don't want to talk about things that aren't going on tomorrow night, and he's not part of the Rumble. I don't think he's declared for the Rumble, right? So yeah, I just don't know. I'm curious. Does he show up 2 weeks after the Rumble and reintegrates himself? Probably, but it's a little weird that he's such a big character and they're not talking about him. But yeah, Fatu is amazing. Jason, what do you think of Jacob Fatu?
Again, I'm being introduced to a lot of these guys for the first time. I never got a chance to see them if they were in New Japan or wherever else they wrestled. The first time I saw this guy, I was like, he reminded me so much of Umaga. And Umaga, who I always thought was one of these big guys who could move. He looked ferocious. He just was an absolute beast. And I saw this guy, and I'm like, he's fantastic. Now, we were talking about putting 50% of my savings on the line on a bet. I would put it gladly on Jacob Fatu having a title run somewhere down the road for a world championship. He is just that good for a big man. His agility, his speed, and even though he's one of these guys that's old school shout when he's doing his promos, there's an intensity about it. It's not shouting for shouting's sake.
Yes,
he just really has a passion.
Yeah. There's shouting for shouting's sake over much, and then there's someone who you can see it's boiling up from inside them. It's not performative. It's not just I'm yelling because that makes my promo better. You can
pure
just see
energy.
Exactly. It's just this bubbling up of energy that it you can't cork it. It's like it's gonna come out in the ring, but until it comes out in the ring, it's overflowing in a different way. Rude Dog, back to you.
Yeah, he's not a cartoon character. He's not eating raw fish backstage and talking gibberish or whatever.
I hear raw fish is popular backstage. Oh, you don't mean the sushi bar? Okay. I don't know that they're giving raw sushi or giving sushi to wrestlers before their matches. That could be a bad idea.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I just
could be worse.
Just derailed your good point, which is he's less of a stereotype, and I agree with that.
You know what I meant?
I totally did.
That's how they used it for. All right.
I saw Afa and Sika. Some of the first WWF television I watched, they were on there tearing apart fish with their mouths. It was gross, and I looked away, and but yeah, thankfully we've outgrown that a bit.
All right. Well, what about LA Knight? Is his Is his push fading now? He kind of seems to be just kind of a guy. What do you think about his trajectory?
So I think he is where I think I always thought he was going to be and ought to be. So I don't think he's getting less of a push. I think he's getting the push that I think he should have gotten all along. And I think it's fine. You know, I mean, he got put, put over by the Tessitore, just when he did his mic work. It was LA Knight's good. LA Knight is just, he's not a slow burning candle. It's just like, it just burns. It's like, it just burns out in like 12 to 20 seconds. Like, just let him get it out of the system. But if he takes a breath and then regroups, it goes downhill from there. And they've learned that. So I think it's being used well. He had his obligatory botch spot. I'm not sure it was his fault where he dove through the ropes and come with a wrecking ball kick and completely missed. And looked upset about it because, he knows he's known for that. But he has, I mean, he's fine. He's an lower top tier guy, or probably more likely a top of the second tier guy. He's got a good job making more money than ever made, getting good crowd reactions, but I wouldn't put him higher in the card, in part because of then what? You can't just say that and not say, because I want him to have more TV time than CM Punk, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu, and on and on. I mean, you can't have it all. I always use the analogy of the NBA. There's only so many minutes. There's 48 minutes and 5 positions. There's going to be good players who have more to give, who are going to be on the bench for 40 minutes a game or did not play coach's decision. That's going to happen. LA Knight is not a starter. But he's a valuable part of the roster. There's no shame in the role he plays. Jason, what do you think of LA Knight's run?
LA Knight reminds me a lot of Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Never going to be a world champion, but you know what? You can send him out there. The guy's got overwhelming popularity. He doesn't need a title to get over. The people love him. Go out there, give him a mic, give him some wins here and there. Maybe have him pick up a couple losses here and there. But he, like you said, he's mid to upper tier. He's a good mid-carder. And I think that, he doesn't need a title to be noticed. And I said that the first time I saw him, and I thought to myself, he's one of these guys that will never win a big one, but will always be loved. So there's no sense in putting a strap on him.
Yep. So Michael Gross is declaring himself for the NBA All-Star game. I don't know if he's watching us live or he just had that joke waiting for him, but there's a lot of things. I like declaring the Vikings as Super Bowl champs. I mean, it might be the only way we ever get that, Jason. It's sad.
Well, hey, I got to stop you right. Can I stop you right there? Because I'm a Lions fan. And so I don't want to hear about your Vikings hardships because it hit harder here in Michigan.
I was heartbroken for you guys. Like, I mean, the Washington Commanders are, with that quarterback, it's an exciting team, and they're like the new team I'm rooting for. But it's certainly against the Eagles. But yeah, I mean, I as soon as the Vikings were by like the third quarter, I was like, okay, this is over. I kind of started getting that feeling early on. And I was like, okay, it'll be fun to watch Detroit go to the Super Bowl this year. And then, the stuff that got them there also cost them with some coaching decisions, and a lot of injuries caught up to them. I don't know. I didn't read or study a lot of postmortem. I'm not an expert on it, but I felt bad for, the crowd shots. I've been in a crowd like that. It's such a bummer. I was there for the 15-1 Vikings when they lost to Atlanta, as in the Metrodome, and it's the Gary Anderson missed kick and then giving up touchdown after that, and it's just the dreams are just shattered. So it sucks. It makes me wonder why we're sports fans, Rude Dog. And why do we put ourselves through it? Every team but one is going to be sad at the end. It's such a dumb thing to do. Like, we get over it. It's not dumb. It's fun, but it sucks when you think about it that you could. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch any of my teams win a championship. I don't. If you're in Boston, it's like, you're upset if 2 of your teams don't win a championship. But most markets don't get that. Anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I'll also say bring back 2 hours. 3 hours is way too long for SmackDown. They're just dragging this stuff on. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Like they're just stretching out a 2-hour show to 3 hours. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna make it 3 hours. Like, make it 3 hours. Like, but
have the material to cover. Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, maybe it'll be better than maybe it'll be better more weeks than this, because this was a 3-hour infomercial for Saturday night's main event with a B-level, a series of B-level matches. None of them were truly main event worthy. I mean, when they showed the camera going through the concourse and I think the club section or whatever it was at the arena, and the fans were super excited, and I'm like, they're really excited, but they just paid top dollar, with all due respect, to watch Jimmy Uso and Kevin Owens in the main event. Maybe there's a dark match. We didn't have an on-site correspondent tonight. And then Damian Priest against Carmelo Hayes in what was essentially a squash, unannounced. LA Knight against Tama Tonga. I mean, Tonga had a better than usual match, but no one's paying money to see that match. Apollo Crews, Johnny Gargano, an impromptu six-woman tag match. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven B-Fab and Michin beating them to set up a title match in 5 minutes. Even Pretty Deadly and the Machine Guns, it was good for 10 minutes, but I don't know. I mean, these aren't bad matches, just every one of them is mid-card, and that, that's your point, Rude Dog. It's like, but when they're not promoting Saturday's main event, we'd be getting Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman instead, if it weren't for SNME. You know what I mean? Like, so they have to be cognizant of the fact that, Raw could feature Braun Breaker and Sheamus, and SmackDown can feature Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu. Maybe we'd get Rhea Ripley and Nia Jackson on television, and Saturday's main event's TV, but one of the regular weekly shows. But they are spreading it thin, and they got to work hard to make sure people don't have that feeling that you have tonight, Rude Dog, too often.
Right.
Yeah. But Matthew McConaughey was there, so hey.
I couldn't believe how much the wrestlers were basically marking out for him. Like, it was
yeah.
It was a little embarrassing, honestly. I was like, come on, guys. Like, act like you've been around celebrities before or something. It was just like, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy that. But I mean, I guess he's a big deal, but whatever.
Yeah.
Didn't impress me much.
All right, cool. Rude Dog, thanks.
All right, one last question. Sure. There was like a brief interaction with Damian Priest and Cody Rhodes, and Priest said, "I'll see you soon." Like, looking at his title, basically, like they're gonna have a confrontation at some point. Do you think that's gonna happen? Will that be a good thing to happen? And with that, I'll bid adieu and good night and thank you.
Thanks, Rude Dog. I'm not excited about it. I think it makes sense for Damian Priest, an ex-world champion, to show up and go, good to see you, Cody. I want a title shot. I mean, I like the notion in a generic sense of every top wrestler setting their sights on the world champ. So it's fine, but I don't know that we should make a lot of it. WWE doesn't usually just do things for no reason, but if the reason is we want to make the world title seem important and not make it seem like Priest is going to just instantly be, a fifth from the top guy, it makes what he does going forward more relevant, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, that should be everybody's goal. They should, if they come onto a show, they should be, I want the world championship, because it makes it, or any championship, it makes it seem more worthwhile. But I think that I'm not a big fan of having championship matches for the sake of having championship matches. I want a story. I want it to simmer, then come to a slow boil, and then eventually get to the point where it's about to explode. That's when you finally get that title match. And I go back to I like the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Jake the Snake Robert feud. I mean, it wasn't for a championship, but it was such a slow burn. By the time you got to that penultimate match, it was so important. It mattered so much.
Yes.
But to just be like, I'm going to challenge you for the title. Okay, next week we'll have a title match. Well, that does nothing to excite me. I want to be excited. I want to look forward to it. I'm not saying drag it out like when The Rock and John Cena were talking the day after WrestleMania about next year's WrestleMania when they were going to have a match. I thought that was okay. That's a little far based on nothing, but I really think that I love Priest. I am so proud of the work that he's put in as a guy that, has worked hard to be where he's at in the business. Do I think he's a world champion? I see him as a lower champion. I could see him as a U.S. title holder. I could see him as an intercontinental champion.
Yeah.
Nothing against his talent, but that's just how he radiates to me. But I would have no interest in a Cody Rhodes, Damian Priest anytime soon, anyways.
And I'm genuinely curious with Priest having a good year, what they do with him on SmackDown. Like, or yeah, I mean, like, where does he fit in and where does he go? Are they not propping him up, but are they framing him as a guy who aspires to be world champion because he's going to feud with a heel who also is perceived as maybe world title level? So do we get a Priest Jacob Fatu feud going into WrestleMania or after WrestleMania? Like, just throwing that name out there. Like, they might be setting Priest up to be a bit of a gatekeeper or, you know, a Steamboat Jake type thing where it's like, yeah, world, you know, top acts, not currently in a world title feud. So yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious what they do with him. He has earned the attention of the booking team in Levesque. Like, he has put in work, gotten himself over. He's good on the mic. He's an alpha star. He comes across as a serious person. And not everybody has to be a serious person, but I think if you want to be top guy, and, you know, people say it about Kenny Omega, it just doesn't seem like a serious person. You know, so if you want to be a top guy and a top draw, you gotta abandon the jovial nonsense, goof off with your friends stuff that's a valuable part of why people like you. And that's back to Bianca Belair. Frame yourself as a serious person with serious aspirations, who's a grown-up, who sees this as a big money business and fighting is a big deal. And the world title is something worth being serious about always. And that's Priest. That's who Priest had. That's what got Priest over. I mean, well, some would say interaction with the Judgment Day would certainly help, but it wouldn't have worked if Priest wasn't a serious alpha male, you know, like a serious alpha person. I don't mean to even generalize. It's just like he's a serious athlete with real goals and looking people in the eye and going, I want what you have. And I thought that was in character for him tonight with Cody. I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's bring Sean back in. And Sean, do you want to add anything to any of the conversation here? Bring up a different topic? I'm going to go to the chat also and throw up some comments from the chat that I've marked.
Yeah, no, going back to Priest, I think he could have a feud, you know, with Fatu or somebody like that, you know, at some point here in the near future. But ultimately, I think he just maybe he beats Shinsuke and wins the U.S. title. I think that's a good spot for him, winning the U.S. title and carrying it around for a while and you know, having some prestige to it because people think of him as a bigger deal now. So him having a title of any kind, I think, is good. And I think that'd be fine. I mean, Nakamura's done some good stuff as a heel, and I think Priest challenging him would be fine for me. I mean, some people would think it's lower, but for me, it's really good just to have him in a title feud of some kind. And going back to what you were saying, going back to the guns, I just want to bring that up real quick because I was with you. I did not like if you're going to do a 2 out of 3 falls match, Jason, you know, tell me a story. They told no story to this. They just said, "Oh, we're going to have a 2 out of 3 falls match." Like, no, that's not how you do that kind of a match. You got to build up to something like that, and they just have not done that with this feud at all to me. So it's.
I mean, it just feels like they've been in each other's vicinity, like, you know, just different qualifying matches and that kind of thing. And so I didn't have a big problem with it, John, because I was just like, well, Nick Aldis wants to who's most worthy, and they won, and so now looking at the tag list, they're ex-champs. They won. Let's give them a match. And, you know, is there a little snide like DIY, or we're going to surprise DIY with something they won't like? And we all, you know, Aldis has to be professional about it, but he sort of delights in it the way Saban and Shelley were delighting in delivering the news. I mean, I think fans look at that and enjoy it. What do you think about the way that was presented, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I know they've been kind of sniping at each other since DIY won the titles. And, you know, and then they've been, you know, you've had all these other tag teams involved in this kind of a 4-way thing. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I liked the concept of 2 out of 3 falls, as Wade and I were discussing, if they give them the time. If they would give them a 20-minute match, do I think they will? Probably not. But I think if you could have 2 teams that could pull off a 20-minute match and have it be exciting, I think these are 2 teams that could. And I do want to say on a side note that I enjoy Pretty Deadly. I've loved them since NXT UK. I liked the aggressiveness tonight. I like how they can go from the flamboyant, pretty boys, the funny boys on the backstage. But when they came out and they showed that aggressive side, I thought that could make them stars right there. Because, you know, you can be over the top flamboyant in your backstage interviews, but if you can go out there and overperform and have an aggressive mean streak, I thought it was one of the better showings I've seen out of that pairing, and quite a while. They were kind of like this gatekeeping joke for a while, and I thought they actually stood up and they seemed like they mattered.
Yep.
Wait,
good.
Quick question.
Let me just read a couple chats so I don't lose track, and then I'll throw to you, Sean. Goodfella 1422 says, pretty deadly. Good match tonight. Regarding 2 out of 3 falls, Sadler version 3 says, yeah, I don't mind it. DIY cheated, so they can say 2 out of 3 will determine who the better team is. Sean, your thoughts on all this?
I wanted to ask you, just do you think it would have been better to have, if when the Guns came up on the main roster, would it be better to have them build a story to them winning the titles? Was it too quick for them just to win the titles and then lose them right away? I didn't like them winning them that quick. I mean, the fans weren't behind them enough to be like, oh, this is cool, them winning the titles. I would have built up to that a little bit longer.
So Jason's nodding, but I will throw to him as a tiebreaker because I liked it. I think you have to establish. You don't have to, but I think the benefit was you established right away. These guys they're not here to be veterans putting over young guys on their Golden Watch tour. Like, they're serious. They're seriously good, and they were good in the ring. So you could push them that hard and have them win the titles. Now, from that, you can. I'm less willing to say, yeah, now let's play hot potato with the belts or have them lose them. But I didn't have winning them. I think winning them right away was a way to tell fans, yeah, they've been around forever, and it took them forever to get here. But that was a fault of Vince McMahon. Not them. Like, they've been successful everywhere they went, and they came here and they made it work right away. So I like that because it was different. Nobody thought it was going to happen, and it did, and I think people were happy for them. And it instantly told the masses, these guys aren't just dazzling to watch, they're good, and they just won the belts quicker than anyone thought they would. And it went against your expectations, Sean, but I think in a way it can work. Now, I wish they were still champs. I'm not against hot potato title changes. I think they should be utilized. I'm nervous to say this, but more often. But it's sort of like salt. Like, sometimes I want a little bit more salt on something, but don't start just taking the lid off and pouring it on. Like, a little more often. Jason, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Sean. I mean, I think sometimes if you're a true wrestling fan, like a fanatic like we are, and we watch and we follow all of the other organizations, but I don't think the majority of wrestling fans do. I think they have a favorite they may watch, and I don't think people were familiar enough with the Motor City Machine Guns to get behind them. Now, the crowd reaction behind them now is a lot stronger than it was when they first came on board, because I think that's what makes, and not just tag team, but just wrestlers in general, when you bring in these new people and you get to know them, the chase is so exciting. And I just think that they won them too quick. And if that's fine, if they were going to win them quick, look at how fast they won it. And, you throw up the confetti. But if you're going to lose them, what was it? How many days later? Like 42 or some ridiculous number. Then it makes it almost look like, oh, they won them faster than any tag team. But boy, they lost them real quick too. It must have been a fluke. I just wish they had a stronger run or a stronger run up to winning them.
And they're going to lose them again. They're not going to win them this time either. So, I mean,
I just think that I think it would have been beneficial for them to be given more time to lead up to winning that championship, rather than just people saying, well, we'll just assume that everybody knows who these guys are. I mean, we never really saw many vignettes, or we got like a couple of like teaser videos of like these fast cars going through the street, but to the average viewer who may just watch WWE, that these guys were just a couple of guys that came in. They have no history of where they've been, where they've come from, how long they've been together. I just think they could have told a better story to flesh out their team.
And I think your perspective, Jason, as someone who wasn't watching their top work in TNA and ROH, it's like it has merit. Like, I wanted to get to know them better before they achieved their ultimate goal that took them almost longer than almost anybody. I mean, the number of matches that they had before they won a title. I mean, there's probably some AI program that can figure it out who won a major championship in a top company who had more matches before that happened. If anyone's ahead of them, it's a short list because they worked a lot of matches over years. So I get that. I still stand by the idea that it sent a signal to you, Jason, and others. These guys are for real. It's worth investing in them because the tag team division in WWE hasn't always been paid off your investment. So this is a way of saying, we're not going to take time to introduce you to them first. We're going to tell you they're worth investing in and learning about right out of the gate so that there's no denying we believe in them. And we'll get around to letting you get to know who they are afterwards. I get that takes something away. We're talking about the chase with Cody, and sometimes he's better chasing. Obviously, that's a valid argument. I just think with the guns, it worked because it was different. There's some downside, but I think there's some underrated upside.
Yeah, I think I guess my only argument against that is they lost them right away. That's my point. Like, if you put it on them and you have them have it for a long time, then yeah, that's cool. You can build up, who they are and all that stuff. But then you just lose them right away to DIY. That kind of defeats the purpose of what your argument is. I feel like. Well,
my argument is I'm not against them winning them quickly. The second part of my argument is I wish they still had them, but it doesn't. It's not them losing it quickly isn't enough to make me change my opinion that there were some positives that offset the negatives more for me. But ideally, yeah, I think they should have kept the belts longer because it did send a signal to people. Well, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe it was, they got lucky. They're that journeyman quarterback who has a really good first 15 games of the season and then collapses.
Sam Darnold.
I wasn't going to say the name, but yeah, I want to know how Sam does next year. I mean, he's not going to get the contract he would have gotten if he kept playing people who didn't watch the Vikings every game, every week, Jason, don't know how freaking almost perfect he was. There's like a couple throws you're like, oh, that's the old Sam Darnold, like scattered throughout the season. But I don't remember seeing a quarterback. I mean, he was as good as Kirk Cousins at his best and then more mobile. Yeah. And so what happened in the second half of the Packer game and then Detroit and then the playoffs, it's just like, that wasn't the same guy. And I haven't had time. I want to just kind of catch up on my reading on the post. Part of it is I just didn't want to revisit. When the Viking, I was just done. Like I wasn't planning to cover Raw that night. I'm like, I'm glad I got to go try to catch up on Raw and do a post show. Because it kept me from listening to the funeral afterwards on talk radio and reading articles. But I want to go back and kind of read what happened with Sam Darnold. I don't really know what the story is. But point being, the MCMGs are not Sam Darnold. But they did in a way send that signal to fans. So, there's a little bit of a concern there. So Mark Paschetti chimed in on this. I love getting this instant feedback in the chat. Mark goes, them winning quickly made me think they were worth investing in. So that's kind of my point. But I agree with Sean. Hey, they're not as interesting after losing so quickly, especially to DIY. Yeah, it's not perfect. I mean, I'm totally conceding that point. But I think there's some positives in winning quickly because I think people like Jason might have said, I don't know them yet, but they got my attention, and I think that was the purpose, at least. All right, I want to bring up a topic myself here. Tiffany Stratton, her promo, her character. Her promo came right after the Charlotte vignette, where Charlotte talked about she crafted a legacy no one can touch. Everybody knows who I am. I'm back. I'm entering the Rumble. She says, with a smile on my face and a tear in my eye, and I'll remind everyone who owns the night. She let out a woo. Then Tiffany comes out right afterwards, and clearly Tiffany is a heel, right? Can we? Are we? Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, I want, like, fans are cheering her, and she turned on Nia Jax. That should turn someone babyface, but that's why she turned the way she did. And my issue was if she stays heel, I'm better with the finish, costing Naomi the match because she doesn't care about Naomi. My problem was if we're expected to cheer her and celebrate her win without like reservations, I have a problem with that. I think the announcer should have said, Tiffany, glad you finally turned on Nia, but did you have to take out Naomi in that context? It was very selfish. So obviously now we're seeing this Tiffany, and it's like, oh, well, she's self-centered and selfish. She's tired of Nia Jax, but she also isn't going to play fair, and she's full of herself. So, Jason, what do you think of the journey Tiffany's been on and where she is right now?
I give her all the credit in the world, first of all, for where she's gotten in the amount of time that she's been in the business. I think she's a phenomenal talent. But I think that she falls into that category of, and I don't mean of the same high level of like The Rock or Steve Austin, but when you get to a certain level of cool, I think that she has that. And I think she's got the catchphrases that people like. And there's just something about her. I don't know. I mean, for me anyways, and she's like that really popular cheerleader in high school that you're not even going to get a chance to go on a date with, but you follow her around because you're so damn cool. I love her. And I think they're unless they put her up against somebody like a Rhea Ripley, or if they brought back a Becky Lynch, unless you put her up against somebody who really is a mega over the top face, it's going to be hard to get her booed, in my opinion.
Sean, what do you think of that?
Oh, okay. I've already talked about it a little bit, but I have more to say. I like Tiffany Stratton a lot. I really like what I've seen, especially in the ring. She's very talented in the ring. Obviously has a gymnastics background. She's very athletic. Her promo stuff generally has not been good. I don't like that she has phrases, the Tiffy time. I don't like that. I mean, it defines her at a low level. I don't want... if she's going to eventually be which she's a heel right now, but that's what's weird is I feel like they're leaning into the, her against Charlotte, which with Charlotte, why did she have to woo at the end? Oh God, like, come on. I want Charlotte to be something different than that and not go back to the Flair stuff. I want her to be herself.
That too. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think it was I'm not as disgusted as you are right now. You're like, people who aren't seeing him, he's wiping his head. It's like, oh my God, this is terrible. That was me watching the Vikings in the playoff game, is how you're acting towards her promo. I'm not quite that worked up about it, Sean, but I had the same thought. I don't want her to go. She wasn't robotic. I mean, it did feel like this is somebody who's self-confident, knows who she is now. She's not, doesn't seem in like over her head, pretending to be something she's not. I mean, I think there was a believability to her self-belief. That hasn't always been there. Sometimes it's felt performative. When she went woo, I was like, I didn't like it, and then I'm like, and I know a lot of people are gonna like it, but I'm like, man, I part of me doesn't blame her. I mean, it is like they play it at a hockey game. Like it's this iconic thing, and she has legit lineage to claim it, but I don't want it to be a crutch. I don't want it to be, she thinks I go woo, so therefore I'm over and I've done my job. So what do you think, Jason, about Charlotte's vignette and her woo?
And unless I'm mistaken, one of you guys can correct me, but for the longest time, wasn't she just simply referred to as Charlotte because they didn't want to associate her with having the Flair the last name? But now she seems to be leaning into and embracing that heavily. Now it's Charlotte Flair, and I'm back and woo. And I mean, I take nothing against Ric Flair. I loved him for a very long time, and I kind of feel the same way about Braun Breaker. He's Rick Steiner's son, and he's doing the dog barks, but he changes his name because he doesn't want to be like his father, but he emulates his father, and even some of the promo mannerisms he has are very Scott Steiner. I mean, if you don't want to call yourself by your family name, that's fine. If you want to make a name, I look at Lexus King. He doesn't want to be Brian Pillman Jr. He wants to be his own person. But if he starts doing Brian Pillmanisms and saying things that Brian used to say, then why did you bother changing your name? But I think that I don't know. Charlotte's one of those talents that I respect in the ring, but she has gotten to the point of John Cena-ism with me where I'm kind of tired of her. Because it seems like she goes away for a while, and when she comes back, they're like, here you go. We're going to thrust you right into the main event picture again because you're Charlotte Flair. She'll let out a couple of woos. And so I said that's just my bias against her. I just wish if they just kept her Charlotte and she hadn't adopted so many of the mannerisms of her father. But I don't know. Don't pretend you're not part of a Flair family if you are going to act like a Flair.
Yeah. So Sadler version 3 says it's the same old stale Charlotte she's been for years. I expected no different. I'm not willing to declare that yet. I mean, I understand drawing that conclusion for sure,
Right.
but I want to see her live with a microphone. I did not hear her talk like the robot Charlotte Flair that she did for so long. Like, I think there was improvement here, genuinely. Like, so I don't know. I mean, I want to see her live with a microphone. I hope everybody realizes that that she can connect with the crowd more. I mean, like, there's sort of this, I'm a legacy star. I've main evented. Look at me. I'm a star. I mean, that's her whole shtick here in these vignettes, but I want her to deliver better on the microphone. And, you know, like, again, just not do the robotic talk. Like, I think there's a natural charisma that she has that she just needs to kind of relax and be willing to show who she really is, whether she's trying to be heel or a face, be more grounded as a person and not someone who goes into promo mode.
Yeah, so going back to Tiffany, I just think as a heel, it can work because has that arrogant vibe to her, obviously. If she goes face, if she just sticks to the Tiffy time and the way she talks right now, I'm not going to get behind her. It's not relatable to me. It's Tiffy time. That only goes so far, Jason. I mean, it just does. I mean, it's got a shelf life on it. And if you don't have more to your character, and it's going to be like a Bianca. And again, I love Bianca. I love these women as far as in the ring and what they can do and their talent level. I want to sink my teeth into something. And Tiffany has to give me something and the booking has got to help too. It's not all her. It's got to be the booking, but she's got to make me feel like I want to get behind her if she is going to turn face whenever that is. Because I don't know what Charlotte's going to be when she comes back. We don't know yet. So.
Well, people want to... Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, and that's the way I feel about Bianca Belair. If you're going to sit there and say you're the toughest, the strongest, the best, and you list off all these things, you can't be a face, in my opinion, because those are arrogant comments about being better than everyone else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why. And so I agree with you about Tiffy and her catchphrases, but it's the same kind of thing I feel about Bianca, is because, you know, her mannerisms as far as what she says when she's doing a promo are very heelish, but she's swinging her braid and she's slapping people's hands at ringside. There's not, with both characters, I think that they're right in the mud right now. They don't have a clear path for either one of them. And I think they've got, if you're going to pick a path, pick it and stick to it, and then alter what you need to in your promos to fit who you are as a character. And right now, I just think it's all over the board.
Yeah. So I'll have a wait and see we only had a couple of vignettes with Charlotte, a little bit of talking. I think the placement of her right before Tiffany is suggesting that she will be winning the Rumble and challenging Tiffany. Or facing Tiffany one way or the other. A couple chat room comments I want to introduce here about this topic. One, just generically speaking, Dan says creative has to be better for the women's division. Brock Benningfield says follow the crowd's lead, turn Tiffany face. I disagree.
Yeah,
I do. I think Tiffany is more heelish. I think naturally as a character, they just need to make sure that they commit to it and make sure that they coach her on how to not do things that wins the crowd over. Darrell says Tiffany didn't seem over tonight. Didn't get much of a pop or reaction. Yes, her promo style is more robotic than Charlotte.
Well, I don't know about that.
Charlotte
was pretty robotic.
Charlotte was in general more robotic, but I think Tiffany is coming across as I've got some scripted things to say with an affected tone, and I'm going to say it and get through my lines. I don't know. I don't feel like she's talking like a real person either. I think she's too cartoonish. Ken Arnold said, watching Charlotte speak in that vignette, especially in the close-up shot, something about her seemed off-putting. I'm hesitant to comment on what I saw. Okay. Well, yeah. All right.
Jason, go back to what you said about Charlotte. She was Charlotte just by herself initially. It was just Charlotte. When she won the Divas title, I hate that word, but that's what it was. She won it, and then they changed it to Flair at some point down the line.
I don't think they were hiding it. It was just sort of like, it's not going to be her thing. Yeah. You know, maybe they said it once in passing, but then it was just, she's Charlotte. You know, like, I'm not going to live in my father's shadow, that kind of thing. All right, so let's see. Another coming here. Brock Benningfield says, have Charlotte put Tiffany over. I'm good with that. Yeah, I mean, if they think Tiffany's ready and she's got the right and if they believe Tiffany is developed enough overall that they really want to go all in with her, Charlotte putting her over would be a huge statement. And Charlotte's at a stage right now where she's not gonna not be a star if she loses to somebody of Tiffany's stature, of some of this hot up and coming prospect. Well, she's more than a prospect, she's champion, but in a way she's a prospect to be a true top tier star who earns a WrestleMania main event type or any kind of PLE main event. She's still got to prove she can. Sadler version 3 says Tiffy is still so green and young. I'll give her a pass. But this is a key. Mark Biscotti says Charlotte has some new acts to interact and react to. She's been gone long enough where it can feel fresh. Hopefully she doesn't do her paint by numbers stuff. Totally agree with that. And Dan says, got to get rid of the Tiffy name. Yeah, there's just way too much just sort of leaning on a couple things that's going to be her thing. And, Tiffy time. It just, I think it can dumb down her character a little too much. JC Scooby says, lighten up on Tiffany. I said
I like her. I mean,
yeah.
I don't dislike her. I'm just trying to be honest about what I see. I mean, it's just being, I think I'm trying to be fair.
Charlotte can only pull off being heel. She needs to limit the woos. Yeah, don't lean on the woos. Don't be robotic. And there's so much there, I think, that she can do. Ken Arnold says, her face looks different than when the last time we saw it. She really overdid if she had cosmetic surgery while she was away. That's what I noticed. It struck me she looked different. I didn't study it. I thought maybe the makeup is different. People have cosmetic surgery. If she did or didn't, I don't know. But I mean, there's no shame in that. I mean, it's just people get hair plugs. People dye their hair. I just think that's just okay. Like, I mean, can it be overdone and look unnatural? Of course. Does Botox sometimes, distort lips where it doesn't seem like you're a human being anymore? To my eyes, yes. But they look in the mirror and they like it. I mean, teach their own. Whatever. I mean, I'm not just. I don't think that's a big crime in the world if somebody wants to alter their looks. Within reason, there's exceptions where I'd be like, come on, for sure. Jason, anything you want to add about the Tiffany and Charlotte chat room comments?
Real quick. I know Sean and I have gone back and forth about Tiffany Stratton. I know, Sean, that you like her, and that there's some mannerisms. I will say, as much as I like her, that her promo style has been almost watered down to what she did in NXT. When she was in NXT, she was a true heel. She was almost like this Valley girl born with a silver spoon in her mouth, and they do vignettes of her playing tennis and playing golf, and that was awesome. And when she would do her Tiffy time, it fit. If they are going to make a face out of her, they've got to make her more of a strong woman character. I look at Rhea Ripley. I mean, she's just a badass woman. I mean, she's just somebody you can't help but respect. If you're going to make Tiffany a face, you've got to make her not seem like some blonde, airhead from the West Coast, which is what she was in NXT, but she played that perfectly. She can't be a heel unless she goes back to that, because it was her mannerisms were awesome. But I've noticed since she came on the main roster, it's like she's doing the same shtick, but it's less. And watered down is the best way I can use to describe it. So I said that, again, they've got to pick a lane and drive in that lane 100 miles an hour and just stick to it.
Sean, you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I'm with you. Like I said, I love her future. It's very bright. I just think there's things she needs to be careful of, booking wise, partly, and then with her feeling her character and who she really is, like, kind of dig into that. If she's going to be a heel, go all in. If you're going to be a face, just try to be more relatable. That's all, and not stick to the little things.
Did it feel like a moment when Rhea Ripley entered the ring and squared off with Tiffany as the reigning champs? Like, did that feel like, oh, these are two people who are going to cross paths someday and main event someday, and Rhea's super over and Tiffany's the rising star? Or did it, because it struck me that way, like, well, we're in the transfer window and this is unusual and novel.
It so. I thought so. And when I love when Tiffany actually in the promo said, whoever's going to win the Rumble is going to come after my title. And I love that because she's a heel right now. So it's like, well, Tiffany, maybe they might not. I mean, Rhea's the bigger star right now, technically, than you are. So they're probably going to go after Rhea, but that's a whole other story. I mean, if you're a heel, it was funny. I mean, I liked it. But no, it felt two big time stars for sure. I liked it.
Jason.
I mean, you could not. You talk about the battle of good versus evil, black versus white. In chess. I mean that you could not have a larger dichotomy between these two people. You have the blonde, like Valley Girl, silver spoon in her mouth, and then you got this badass punk rock, black hair. I mean, I love the imagery of it. I mean, because it just makes me like think of, like I said, the ultimate battle of good versus evil. Only this time the evil is the good in Rhea Ripley. I mean, Rhea Ripley just radiates superstardom. I don't think in the past 10, 15, 20 years, I've seen a woman come onto the scene who has made such an impact on not only myself, but on the business. Rhea Ripley is just an absolute superstar, and she will go down as, I believe, one of the greatest in the business of all time, in my opinion.
I think Netflix was a chance to emphasize, the Netflix premiere was a chance to emphasize that point. And it was one of my criticisms of it is I didn't think they were celebrating their past and big stars and celebrities. And I didn't think they said, and I think it was it the previous Friday on SmackDown? Maybe it was Raw, probably Raw, but where Drew said, we're the people who are responsible for the biggest crowds in history, the biggest ratings in history, the biggest revenue. And yet Netflix was all about all these people. As big as people think Hulk Hogan and The Rock and John Cena were, guess what? This group right now is outdrawing them. Like in almost every metric. Attendance, ticket sale prices, total revenue. The pay-per-view model's different. The house show model's different, of course. But like at some point, like let's celebrate people who are actually selling the tickets week in and week out. And Rhea Ripley is like, if you tell today's massive Netflix premiere audience she is our biggest star along with Cody and Roman, that should be the message of that first show. And instead, people saw a one-off nostalgia show and they lost a third of their audience, give or take. I mean, the numbers are hard to pin down. So yeah. I want to read a couple comments here. Jason D from Australia said, this is earlier. I'm just kind of catching up on a few things here. If I'm Bianca, I'm knowing exactly how much merch I'm making per month on average. And then I'm saying to Triple H, if I turn heel, it's probably going to cost me X amount. How do I make that up? So if you have a wrestler with agency and you're all about, and this goes to like the Acclaimed and the whole Scissor Me Daddy stuff. Oh, we're selling all these T-shirts. And it's like, yeah, but their careers are dead right now. I mean, they can put paddles to their chest and try to get them back, but they are not where they would be if they hadn't gone down the like standing for Billy Gunn mode. It's embarrassing. And so that's not Bianca, but my point is sometimes you can think small time about merch money and completely sabotage the arc of your career. I think from a WWE perspective, I think people show up with money to spend on merch, and they're going to spend what they're going to spend, and they're going to find something if the selection is good. So this idea of, Bianca is selling more merchandise than anybody, and I'm not saying that that's the case, but let's say it was. I don't think if suddenly Bianca turns heel and she doesn't have merch anymore, those people showing up are going to buy the next person who's getting the babyface push merch. Like, I just think people come with a budget. There's some variation, of course. Not everybody's equal, but this idea that it just goes poof is wrong. It goes poof for Bianca, and that's a problem with the structure of how WWE pays people. If people like, I don't want to do what's best for the company and the business and my career because in the short term, I would lose money if I did. I just think there has to be a better way. And frankly, I think it's been proposed that whoever you're feuding with, they should get some of your merch money. So if you're a heel feuding with a babyface, the heel should get some of that merch money from putting you over. And I don't think they do that. I'm pretty sure they don't, but it's been talked about as like the right thing to do. So anyway, yeah. So Dan asked, is Jade really injured or out for more training? I reported a while ago she's got a neck issue, so there's like a legit injury. This isn't just you need to go train. Now, sometimes a player sits out in sports because they want them to be fresh for the playoffs and they have a nagging injury. And so they sit out some games, but if they could have played. And I don't know if that's the case with Jade, but there's a legit issue with her. I've definitely confirmed that. Ken Arnold said, I think a match between Rhea and Bianca would be great, but the promos would be so lopsided in Ripley's favor. See, that's the thing. Yes, current Bianca. But I think the actual Bianca who people in real life interact with, I think that's untapped potential. Sean, what do you think? You're demonstrative over there.
Oh, it'd be big time money, but right now, I mean, Bianca would have to be a heel. I mean, if it's like, because it'd be face now, and I mean, it's fine. You could do face and it'd be okay, but I like heel face matchups, and Bianca would have to be a heel because that would be money. Next year's Mania, if Bianca's in a good spot by that point as a heel, oh man, you're talking big time money. Best women's match, maybe even beating some of the because the Bianca Sasha Mercedes match at WrestleMania, the one in Florida during the COVID year, which I hate to think of that because that was just I'm so sad that we have to go back to 5 years ago and we have to relive all that again. Oh God, I'm not looking forward to that at all. But anyway,
it was fascinating, but
it was not in a good way, not in a good way. But it was cool to see what the wrestlers were able to do in that setting, which was cool. I mean, Drew obviously became a bigger star then, and there was some good stuff there. But with Bianca, yeah, it could be a great WrestleMania match, but they got to do a lot of work with Bianca to get to that point.
Ken Arnold said, if Bianca faces Rhea at WrestleMania, I can see the crowd turning on Belair against the cooler and more mature character of Ripley. Jason, what would the crowd response be if they? I mean, there's so many women's matches they can do, but if they did Bianca Rhea, if Bianca turns heel and she's the one to attack Jade, and there's some storyline issues to work out logic wise for that to be the case, but it's out there as a possibility. She could be a heel, and I mean, then fans would cheer Rhea. But if they were face, what would happen?
Belair in a heartbeat. I mean, I think maybe she might carry some of the kids, the real young kids. But I think the majority, if I was going to be putting a percentage on it, I would say 90% Rhea Ripley, 10% Bianca Belair face to face. I mean, they're night and day. Bianca's character is so cold and it's been stagnant for so long. And Rhea Ripley, she was great as a heel.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to boo her because she's so freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, I go back to the Stone Cold Steve Austin. I bring him up a lot because he was one of those guys that were like, you have to boo him. And people were like, we can't. You made him too cool. He is the epitome of what we want to be with our bosses. And Rhea Ripley is like this woman. You're like, she's freaking awesome. She's strong. I mean, both like mentally and emotionally and physically. She could whoop your ass. And it would be awesome. And I would totally be black and blue for a week. And I would wear that as a badge of honor. Yes. I mean, and especially if you go back to when she was in the Mae Young Classic and she was Charlotte Flair Jr. And, she had her blonde hair and she was like a little surfer girl. And then when she came back and I was watching her in like NXT UK and she was like, all of a sudden, this badass with these tattoos and piercings and this shaved head. I was like, oh my God, it was like something out of the Mad Max movies. I was like, she's nailed it. This is the character, and heel or face, but it's so you cannot boo her right now. They could try to pull a Becky Lynch where they try to do that with Becky and have it be an epic fail. That's exactly what it would. She is one of the most over superstars no matter what part of the roster you look at. If you were going to rank them, she's got to be near the top as far as popularity with like the overall attendance of fans.
No doubt about it. Sadler version 3 in chat says Bianca is the female Jey Uso to me. It's a simple character that's over, so she probably doesn't feel the need to change anything. My counter to I think there's truth in that. I don't think Jey Uso has more of an upside than how he's being used. I think they've seen what they're going to get out of him, and it's not centerpiece, true top guy. Bianca, I still think that's there. That's the thing. So I think the mindset is, oh yeah, Bianca's fine, and we have the shiny new toy and Tiffany, and Charlotte's coming back, and maybe Tiffany, and we got Rhea already, and Nia Jax has had a breakout year for her, and a lot fewer critics of her getting TV time these days, I'm noticing, and so on and on. I mean, I don't know. I get where Sadler's coming from. I just think there's more there. Michael Gross said Tiffany is a work in progress. Naomi bores me. Bianca was overexposed years ago, and that's why they pumped the brakes. Yeah, well, let's refresh your character and let's get going with something new and better. JC Scooby says Bianca is a yawn fest. Different people have different feelings on that. And Dan says I'm ready for a different baby face than Bianca. So we'll see. Okay. Anything else you guys want to say before we sign off? I mean, I think we covered most of the major segments, but anything else, Jason, that you have on your mind or in your notes that you wanted to talk about we haven't yet, or any follow up on something?
Well, we've talked about I just want to say how much I appreciate the heel work that DIY is doing.
Mm-hmm. And how different they are than each other.
Ciampa is like a born heel. He just looks like a heel. Everything he exudes heelism. But I think people overlook Johnny Gargano as a heel because he's smarmy and he's one of those. He's like chicken crap heels, and he's like manipulative. He does expert heel work, and I think right now when he was leading the way, he was good, and then it got so comical, it got good, and they became faces. But right now with Ciampa, I think that the DIY they're getting the crowd reactions they should have been getting, but as they never really clicked as baby faces, people didn't really have an investment in them. But now they're getting reactions. They're getting negative reactions in a good way, not go away heat, but actual genuine heat, because these guys, I think, are just doing some of the best work. I absolutely love what they're doing. So I hope they continue to be these really smarmy and manipulative characters, because I think they really play that so well.
It's well said. I'm glad that you've said it. It's like Sammy and KO. There's like a chemistry there, and they play off each other so well. Ciampa and Gargano are together for a reason, and like I just kind of wedged in at the beginning of your comment, they're so different. They're distinct. Ciampa's a hothead. Gargano's a smarmy manipulator who pretends to be the good guy, but he's totally insincere. And Ciampa's just brute force, no mask, no disguising his feelings. And Gargano's sort of this like, smarmy good cop, but you can see right through him. It's fun. It's entertaining. And they're so much better than they were as baby faces. I was worried they were, I don't know. Yeah. Sean, anything in your notes?
Yeah, I've got a few things. I don't want to go too long, but there's a few things I wanted to bring up, even kind of based on tonight. I wanted to go to the other with the Chelsea and the U.S. title real quick. I wanted to kind of have your thoughts on a few things. The match was fine. B-Fab is not good. I'm sorry. Like, she's got some personality to what her character could be. Like, she's got some cool vibes, but in the ring, she's just bad. So green, so not good. And Piper, obviously, with her and Chelsea have been fine. Wait, I'm with you on the two of them. They're fine. I like them together. I wish Piper just wouldn't have lost so much. I think there's so much in her, like just as a talent individually. But her and Chelsea have been fine. I just thought if Chelsea wins the U.S. title, they would tweak her character a little bit in a fun way where we could have it be still her quirkiness, but have it be a little more serious. And I just feel like we're just doing the same thing with her, which is okay in a way, but it's like I want a little more. I hope after this Michin or Mia Yim, I'm with Todd. I don't like Michin. That's a stupid name. Mia Yim. That's what
Michin. Michin's in an interview, and she's Michin in an interview published. You can say she was put up to it, or she's trying to play good company person. But she said it's a name she's always wanted, and she chose it. And Mia Yim was a made up one, and Michin is the one that has a family heritage or something. And you can Google it. You can say it's insincere, but it's not like they thrust it upon her as something she didn't choose.
Yeah.
Braun Breaker also put a positive spin on that name also. And, who knows how these people really feel. But just for context, like, people have pointed this out. Like, Michin gave what felt like a pretty sincere explanation of why this is a name she always wanted to have. And she felt it was time to do it. So
I did not.
It might not fall into the typical category. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So with Michin, I hope I like what she's done. I've really enjoyed her the last few months. I just wish once they have this match and Chelsea should win, just move on. Like, that's the thing I would say with Michin and Chelsea, and then with Sheamus and Braun. Like, we got to move past these feuds. They're just going on forever. Like, we don't need to see Sheamus and Braun again after this match tomorrow night. I just want to see Braun do something different, move on to something. Wherever he's going to go, just do something different, because this isn't working for me anymore. I like Sheamus, but you can only have him battle for the Intercontinental title and lose so many times, and then you just don't there's nothing to sink your teeth into anymore. Like it's over. His run's done it going for that title. Like let's move past it. But with Chelsea, what have you thought about her U.S. title run so far? Are you just it's okay? Like where do you think it could be going? Is there something better for her since she's got the title? What have you thought about Chelsea's first few weeks?
What have you thought, Jason? And by the way, my dog is saying I gotta go soon. He's just pawing at me. It's that I know we've gone too long when it's past midnight central, and he's staring at me, going, "Come on, it's time for food. You've been sitting at your desk for 5 hours." But yeah, go, Jason. What have you thought of Chelsea so far? To me, just short answer is I think it's met expectations. It's what I thought. She's not going to be super serious, but she's talented, and her babyface opponents will look good against her. But she'll eke out wins thanks to Piper Niven mostly.
Yeah, I would like to see a more serious side of Chelsea, but at the same time, I got to say, I get a kick out of this whole Secret Service, Piper Niven protecting the United States champion. I mean, Chelsea Green is one of those people, again, she's a heel, but how can you truly hate on her? Because she plays the Karen character so damn well. I mean, she just really, she has nailed that character, but I look back at the, what pay-per-view was it where they had the ladder match?
The ladder match between who?
Well, there was 6 of them, and I can't even think who won it. But I mean, I think Mi Chin was in it, and there was like Zoe Stark. But I mean, they had a 6-woman ladder match, and she took that huge bump off that ladder going down through the tables. I mean, this is a woman who, I mean, she knows how to do it in the ring, outside the ring, on the mic. She's brilliant. I'm so glad they gave her the run of U.S. champion, the first one. And I like Mi Chin's work. I really do. I feel bad for her sometimes because she gets such a really low level of crowd support. But I think it's because they saddled her with Chelsea Green, who is a heel, but is a very popular heel. And people just really want to pull for Chelsea. I think Mi Chin, if she could get into a program with somebody who is a more certifiable heel like a Nia Jax, I think could get better crowd responses. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more out of Chelsea's character. But I really, as of right now, I haven't gotten sick of the whole Karen attitude that she has, and she just had. I think this run is obviously the best one she's had in the company because she hasn't gotten hurt. It seems like every time she gets a push on the main roster, she was hurting something, and then she was let go. So I'm happy that she's getting a moment to shine. Yeah,
she's talented, and I think that's being recognized. And I think she's got a long career arc with her character being framed different ways in upcoming years. Yeah. All right, cool.
I want to say, Jason, I'm sorry if I felt like I Bigfooted you tonight, man.
It was so rude.
To be on here with you, man.
You could have. Yeah, Jason.
I mean, I was just offended that you couldn't even wait for me to work through my technical issues before you jumped right in. You had to take over.
And then he just stuck around. Like, I mean, I kept booting him, and he kept forcing his way back on. He kept texting me, going, "Don't you take me off the show? I earned it. I saved you at the beginning." I don't care what Jason thinks. I shouldn't be sharing
Sean,
that.
I owe you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, it's fun. I like I mean, Jason, you'll get your fair spotlight one of these days, co-hosting. But, I like this three-way conversation too. I like that format for a change a little bit.
Yeah, so Wade, thank you. I appreciate that you think of me to even have me on that, for that amount of time to even talk about the show. But I really enjoyed this. Like I said, it was a good show, and I'm excited about tomorrow night. It'll be a really fun show. I'm looking forward to it. So it's always good to be on with you guys. I really, really had a good time.
Cool. Thank you, Sean. We'll hear from you soon. Check out Jason. Tell people about your writing for PWTorch.
Yeah, I cover the hits and misses for NXT every Tuesday. So check it out and let me know if you have any comments, good or bad. If you're like Wade, you like to nitpick, go ahead and nitpick, and just makes me a better journalist is the way I look at it. So
excellent. Good. By the way, PWTorch.com's website. Goodfella422 says cancel Sean. That's it. Brock Benningfield says 3-man booth. Brock Benningfield wants to know, am I doing a YouTube show tomorrow? 90% we're gonna have a live show after Saturday's main event. It might be Greg Parks hosting, might be me hosting. Greg's got some stuff going on. He wants to. But if not, I might be or someone else might be. So that's a plan. Glad you asked. And glad I stuck that in. Cool. Yeah, everyone is 80 people said it was the ladder match was Money in the Bank, and so
Okay.
yeah, makes sense. Cool. All right. Sorry for everyone in the chat who just suddenly flooded with calls, but my dog needs attention, so I'm going to sign off there. I will say, support us with VIP membership. You will love. I'm confident you'll love what comes with VIP membership, and you can get, as Sean gives a big thumbs up, you can get a 7-day free trial by going to Spotify or Patreon and entering PWTorch VIP. You can get a 7-day free trial through Spotify or Patreon by doing that. You can also search PWTorch in your Apple Podcast app and get a 3-day free trial using your Apple account, using the Apple app. So a couple ways to just kind of kick the tires, as I say, and see what membership's like. You can also get a full VIP membership, or at least all the info on it and all the options, including unlocking our library and customized feeds for Apple and Android at pwtorch.com/govip. We appreciate your support, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you all next time.